Good evening, one and all. All those who have come for the first time, we welcome you to Homeopathy Musings. And for those who have already been on Musings platform, I welcome you back on Musings. So today's session, we had a change of timing. We are meeting at 6 p.m. It's not the usual time. And I thank you all for joining us at this time. So a little about our founders of Healing Harmony Clinic and Homeopathy Musings. I think by now you know, those who have been regular. So Dr. Prajakta Vaidya and Dr. Preeti Shah have been a dynamic duo and founders of Healing Harmony Homeopathic Clinic in Mumbai and founders of Homeopathy Musings, which is over 3 years now, which is an online platform where speakers all over the world come and share their experiences, talk about the various approaches and a lot of other topics. It's a diverse topic that we have on our platform, and a lot of homeopaths benefit from these sessions. And we have homeopaths from India and all over the globe who enjoy musings and participate in our sessions and modules that we conduct. So as some of you are already aware, our ongoing module is the in-depth plant module, which is a 1-year module that has already begun in Jan. And we have it going up to December 2023, that is till the end of the year, where 36 sessions, over 36 sessions will be taken, explaining everything about the plant kingdom, right from the subclasses, families, orders, and closely differentiating between the other kingdoms as well. So that's going successfully, and we are into the 6th month now of the plant module. In case you feel that you've missed the bus, you can always contact us where we can help you in case you need to learn only a group of plant kingdom or a certain subclass. You can always reach out to us. We have the a la carte plant system where you can learn whatever you feel like. It's a chance to pick and choose the subclass that you want to learn, and you can attend the session live during the plant module itself, and then you will get access to recordings for 2 months later. If you have any queries, you can always reach out to us. Our upcoming modules are by Dr. Shekhar Algungi sir in the month of August. The dates are flashed on the screen. They are all the Wednesdays of August, 2nd, 9th, 16th, and 23rd of August. Dr. Shekhar Algungi sir was on Musings for rows 1 and 2, where he taught about the conception to birth remedies, and now he'll be continuing the mineral journey from there on. So those who have attended rows 1 and 2 can testify how well he explained rows 1 and 2, how well he broke the concepts to us, and now he'll be just picking up from where he left. So the early bird is up to 1st July, which is exactly 1 month from now. So hurry up to avail the early bird offer. In the month of September, we have Milk Matters by Patricia Hatherley. Patricia Hatherley is a very well-known lactational consultant who's based in Australia. And sometime back on Musing, she had been with us to explain about her provings on lacmacropy. So she has a keen interest on the lac remedies, and here in this 4-day module, she will be explaining everything about lactation and the homeopathic utility of human milk, starting from the lactational issues that a mother will face. Along with that, she will also be exploring lac maternum and lac humanum in her module. The module will be in the month of September. The dates are 5th, 12th, 19th, and 26th of September. If you wish to register for any of our upcoming modules, you can always contact us. The number is on the screen. And today's topic, we have Dr. Sunil Anand sir with us, who's going to explain to us and talk from his experience about right brain probing, the therapeutic use of creative tools. Dr. Sunil Anand sir has done his graduation from CMP Homeopathic Medical College, which is in Mumbai, after which he pursued his post-graduation from Hahnemann Postgraduate Institute of Homeopathy in UK. His experience and contribution at 2 premier homeopathic medical colleges in India have helped shape his role as an enduring teacher. His use of simple tools such as toys and games for children, as well as the inquiry into doodles and drawings made by his children and adult patients, provide wonderful insights into cases with very deep pathologies as well. So right here today, he's going to explain the various other tools that he uses to reach the minimum. So I think this, I'm sure that this session is going to be very, very interesting. Currently, he's based in Toronto and he has authored a book titled The 10 W's to Wellness, Insights from Homeopathy. We welcome you, Sunil Anand sir. Thank you for accepting to come on Musings and sharing your valuable knowledge with us. Before I hand over the mic to sir, I would just like to address a few basic hygiene factors. As always, kindly keep your lines muted all the while. Sometimes the lines can get unmuted and it can cause distraction to the speaker as well as the audience. So kindly please be careful about that. You can choose to keep your videos on, which will help in interaction and will definitely avoid you to multitask. In case you have any questions, so we'll be opening up few minutes in between the session so that we can he can answer those questions. So you can either unmute yourself during that time, or you can put it up in the chat box and I can further address it along with sir. Kindly refrain from scribbling on the screen. Most importantly, enjoy all the sessions. For any musings that you missed, you can always muse on our repertoire of learning. The links are on the screen right now. So the first link is of our YouTube channel. We have a lot of free videos on YouTube related to Homeopathy Musings and Healing Harmony Clinic. And the second link that you see is the link of Repertoire of Learning, where you can get all the recordings. For any questions or difficulties, you can contact any of us, that is Asmita, our musing coordinator, or myself, Dr. Twinta, and we'll be happy to help you. Thank you. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Twinta, for such a wonderful introduction. And I'm so glad to have you, sir. It is our honor and our privilege to have you. Thank you for removing time from your busy schedule. And Dr. Anand is such a well-known figure in the homeopathic world. He needs no introduction. And I think we're all very, very excited. I think the topic is so interesting. So just look forward to your session. I think every minute we are spending in introducing, we are wasting the precious time we could otherwise learn from you, sir. Once again, thank you for coming and look forward to this session.
Thank you. So that's Preeti, I presume, right?
That's right, sir.
Right? Yeah, good. Yeah. So no, thanks for organizing this, and that's what struck me when you guys reached out. And I don't do much of lecturing, and I'm very selective because there are some great speakers, and I know the word of homeopathy is being spread far and wide and well. But when someone comes to me and, in a very sincere way, and when I see what they are doing, like what you guys are doing, you and Prajakta, and the way Twinta went around introducing what you do, I read about your profile, and this is what caught my attention, about the holistic therapies and your Karwan model that you do and the kind of speakers that you have been inviting. And I felt this is a right platform to be able to engage with an audience that would be receptive. And in the past, like most speakers, it's a very paternalistic kind of approach where the speaker talks and the others just listen. And at the end, maybe there's some question answers. And I've learned over the years that model, it does fill some of the speakers with some awe and admiration, but that's about it. It's at the end of the day, I find that the audience doesn't go home. They just go with a lot of awe, but they don't necessarily learn a lot. And somewhere along the line, I felt I may have failed in trying to impart and instruct my experiences in a way where it would stimulate them to think for themselves, right? So that's why I've changed my model over the last 10 to 15 years drastically. And that's why the question answers also, I would encourage that maybe every 25 minutes or so, we have a little round of question answers so that I know whether everyone's on the same page. Are they really getting what I'm trying to say? Would they like me to delve into some other areas which they may feel would be more useful, or I may learn something from them which I may not have explored a certain dimension which would be my lacunae. So over the years, last few years, that's what I've been trying to do. And the concept of holistic therapy, I mean, related to what we are going to talk today, is very interesting, because when we confine ourselves to homeopathy, homeopathy by itself is a class of its own, but at the same time, it's misinterpreted, it's misunderstood, it's often targeted, unfortunately. And I feel because of that, if the junior practitioners and even the senior ones are well informed as to how to represent homeopathy as ambassadors of a wonderful science, then they are able to not only impress the clients that come to them, but also use those clients to spread the benefits of good homeopathy all over the world. So I was in a stage of my life about 15 years ago when I had the opportunity to experiment with homeopathy as the main base, with an alternative system of medicine, surprisingly yoga. Now, I say this because in my talk, I would like to impress that each one of you may have skills and strengths, and it's always good to recognize those, embrace those, and capitalize on those. So the person who came into my life at that time, first as a patient and then became a friend, got very interested in understanding the organon, because he wanted to come not just as a regular client, but he wanted to understand in a scientific way, because he had an engineering background. So how does homeopathy work? So I had to introduce to him not only materia medica and the repertory, but mainly the organon. And it's the organon that impressed him the most. And then we went through it section by section. I'd find time because I found his questions very deep. And he was trying to understand how the principles of the organon can be used for corporate wellness. So not just corporate wellness, but also because if there's wellness in the corporation, then there is going to be success and in the output in the corporate world. So this was a very unique idea. And for me, there was a little bit of a resistance because I normally associated yoga with Ayurveda. But that's what I learned from this person, that in the business world, it's important to be the first in something. Others then follow the model, they emulate. But if you are the first, then you are recognized to be an expert in that area. So each one of you should try to think in wherever you are, whichever country you are, what are the needs of the people there? How can you use your homeopathy with the skill sets that you possess and integrate it? So it's called basically integrated medicine, which even Mayo Clinic nowadays and, the likes follow, and combine the two. So that's what we did. And we came up with the Prana Center in Pune. And it was one of its kind. It still exists. It's running well. And I feel very proud to be able to be a part of it up to a point. And we could work on a homeopathic case study. And at the same time, advise therapeutic yoga based on the constitutional remedy that the patient was coming up and the chief complaints that he or she had. So if it's a case of asthma and say the patient is on Moscus, then how to use yoga asanas in a therapeutic way for chest opening, for better lung power, for calming of the mind, to ensure that temper tantrums and breath holding doesn't take place, what to do besides just, so not having to rush to the emergency each and every time if it's a pediatric case, and how these asanas would complement the constitutional prescription. So it was during that time that there were certain experiences which I'll come to, which have been mentioned in the book, and maybe some of you have the book and some of you don't. You don't have to have the book, but if you have it, it's helpful, it's useful. So I will refer to some of the chapters and cases from the book for easy reference. And at that point of time, I had no idea that I would like to write a book, and I was still in the learning process, and there were many good books being written, and I enjoyed reading them and learning from them, utilizing them in my practice if I found them practical. But I learned very early on a very important lesson, which is a lot of homeopathy can be practiced outside of the homeopathic classroom. Okay. So I was traveling by train, and there was a man sitting right next to me, and he was reading a book. So I started interacting with him, and he was an engineer with Tatas. So no homeopathic background, but the book that he was reading held my attention because it was about Just in Time by Taichi Ono. And I started talking to him about the assembly line, how they use just in time to ensure good, quick, and high quality production of engineering tools. And I found that very interesting. And that is the first, when I said accuracy of 10 Ws in homeopathic case taking, the book that I wrote, which is an extension to the 7 Ws of Bonninghausen, the background was the YY analysis of Toyota or just in time. This is mentioned in the book briefly. And he was talking about the YY analysis. And at that point, I knew that there is the Bonninghausen 7 Ws, and there is a Y in that as well. And this is when that idea started playing in my mind. And I find that a very useful tool. We don't have to mechanically, automatically go through each of the 7 Ws. In a case, once you're familiar with the concept of the Baron of Bonninghausen, you can see which of the 7 Ws are being highlighted in the case. And then you probe into that particular W. You may have to refer to some of the others. You don't have to refer to all. And then, of course, I added 3 Ws of my own. That's why I call it an extension to the 7 Ws of Bonninghausen. So it's a very useful model. And we use this in prana. So even during case taking, people from different departments, we created specializations from pediatrics to dermatology to orthopedics, allergies, cancer. So each of them would would use this model to come up with their prescriptions, and it turned out to be a very accurate model to dissect the entire case and to come to the final prescription. So this was the background. And just give me a minute. And then, of course, during that time, since my interest has always been pediatrics, I was reading books, and it's Bruner in 1961 who said that the purpose of education is not to just impart knowledge alone, but facilitate a person or a child's thinking and problem solving skills, which then can be transferred to a range of situations. So you're basically empowering that child or that adult or whoever is the participant to start learning to think creatively on their own. So in that sense, you're empowering them, right? So they're not dependent on having to do a class with a particular teacher for years together. They learn the skill set, you've imparted it to them, they start to imbibe it and use it in their own creative way. So that is the idea of this book. Talking about the other speakers, I just make a brief mention. Patricia Hatherley, Milk Matters. I'm sure that's going to be amazing. You guys should attend. Those of you who are in North America, I'm basically, as was said by Twinta, I'm based in Toronto. And we are doing something interesting in November in Vancouver, along with Roland Gunther. So that's on mammals. So that's why there's a link. I was fascinated, and maybe I will even attend Patricia's and see how I can learn from her. Then, of course, CMP is a premier institute, and it still is in India, one of the top 3 in India. And so many people have graduated from that, including me, and the likes of Dr. Master, Dr. Shankaran, Dr. Barwalia, Dr. Praful Vijayakar, so many others. I may not have named some, but so learning from them, collaborating with them, sharing cases with them, this was a huge learning process. And I'm very fortunate to have had that. And in the book, I mentioned that as in the chapter of mentors as an acknowledgement. And the mentors comprise of not just my homeopathic colleagues, but even other people who have been instrumental in shaping me for what I am, which includes my dad, who's a pediatrician, for those of you who don't know, and also some others who, along the way of my journey, came and helped me to learn the important skills of communication, or the right kind of empathy, or the right kind of resistance when you're dealing with someone of an aggressive mentality, how to balance that energy and yet win them over, while keeping in mind that you have to finally prescribe for them, are arts that I learned along the way. So things like that are mentioned in the book as well. The book is basically made into 9 chapters. And so let's talk a little briefly about that. I'm just keeping track of time. So it's about 6:25. So initially there's a preface, and I try to, in the book, raise a certain curiosity as to, it's easy to blame people for messing up the environment, or to be anti-drugs. But it's a better way to try to understand why certain people have had to resort to narcotics in the first place. What have we as a society reduced our society to, where people have had to force themselves to drug themselves, to stupefy themselves? And then, of course, which is so sad, but at the same time, the impetus on us to try to understand the narcotic substances in homeopathy.
Hello?
Yes?
Yeah, we couldn't hear you, so there was a brief pause.
Oh, so you haven't heard any of what I'm saying?
No, we heard everything. Just for the last 30 seconds, maybe there was a...
Oh, okay. So I will repeat. No problem. Yeah, thanks for letting me know. No, I was saying that in the book, I have try to raise a certain point as to, we are anti-guns, we are anti-drugs. And of course, those are things which should not be encouraged in society. But we have to understand what role have we had to play as in society to create an environment of fear, suspicion, paranoia, where people have had to pick up guns to defend themselves or to resort to drugs and narcotics, keep themselves in an inebriated, stupefied, opiated kind of state. We need to see where we all have been responsible, perhaps in some way, to encourage this kind of a situation, such kind of a crisis. Why is it that mainly during holidays, which is a time of celebration, family time, maximum suicides, maximum traumatic events, disruption in family has happened at times where one normally associates with joyous occasions? What has happened during the pandemic? What has the COVID vaccine done, if anything, and how it has forced people to take sides, the pro, the anti, and how families. So, I mean, the sickness existed in the family before the pandemic. The pandemic just became an excuse for people to start to take sides. To understand the sociology of this, along with homeopathy, is also, for me, a very important part, because I see myself as a family practitioner. And invariably, a patient that comes to me, and if the family starts to see me together as a unit, they heal together so much better than just one entity within that family, right? Those are things like that I have tried to pass on in the book. What are the preemptive moves we can make in people who come out with a clean chit? Diagnostics, everything is clear, but they keep saying, no, I mean, I'm going to get cancer. Please treat, test me again. And they said, you're just hypochondriac. And they reduce it to that. And somewhere 5 years, 7 years, 10 years down the line, the patient would land up with cancer. Now, for a homeopath to understand that, we understand it better than some of the medical people, that there is something called genetic. There are chromosomal abnormalities. But now I'm learning, and then we've come to the world of biogenetics, thanks to Bruce Lipton and others, where it is beyond even nature. So nature versus nurture, right? You're familiar with this concept. If you're not, this is a very important part, that while the nature and the genes and the chromosomes do play a certain role, the nurturing has a higher ability to switch off the chromosomes that are responsible for certain pathology, including cancer. So if you are being nurtured in a caring, empathetic environment, you are able to switch off the genes which would make you susceptible to cancer. So this is an important part to understand and encourage within families, to encourage families to share stories, the importance of stories and reading to children stories at bedtime. We take it very casually, but it plays a very important part in raising children who are secure and caring members of society as they grow up as adults. You may have heard of the late homeopath from Freiburg, Germany, who was a very close friend, Jürgen Becker. He would actually prescribe on the kind of affinity that children had of bedtime fairy tales. And from there, he would probe and go deep into what could be their stress triggers and prescribe their remedy based on fairy tales. So you can understand that he introduced this in the 70s. So I was fortunate enough to learn with him. So this is another part in the book that I have mentioned, people like him, people like Tina Smiths, who then came up with the vaccine protocol. useful in autism and learning disabilities. So one thing leads to the other, right? So today I find myself very fortunate. When I was introduced, it touched me the way you introduced me, but I find myself in a very privileged and grateful situation that if I'm ever stuck in a case and I have to reach out to someone, it could be someone it could be Jan Scholten, it could be Massimo, and the way they respond within 24 to 48 hours is a very big privilege in today's times, right? Because we are a small community, and when we are there for each other, it's a cushioning that we offer for each other. So I encourage all of you, and this is all because of the hard work that we've done in our earlier years, formative years of clinical meetings, arranging seminars. These people have come, Jeremy Sher have come, George Vitulkas, and somewhere that those connections have been made. So even what you are doing through these, it's a way of networking to reach out to homeopaths and then collaborate with them, write with them. So, there's so much. Sit down, come into the clinic and share your experiences with them, learn with them. For me, these are very important parts, rather besides just the homeopathy and the case taking and the repertorization, which of course we will talk about. Those are important too, but these are also a very important part of our evolution. So at this point, I would say it's been about half an hour. Maybe we can just see if anyone has a particular question, and then we can carry on the rest of the meeting based on those questions, if there's any. If there isn't any, I will continue. I have some material to share. I'm not doing slides. I just feel there's a need for personal interaction. So I work better that way. But please, if Twinta or the others who are around, if you want to ask people, if they'd like to ask me, someone's asking which book. So yeah, that's the 10W. Thank you for mentioning that. But yeah, is there anyone else who would like to ask something?
Yes, so we have Dr. Jyoti who's asking dreams in children cases.
So what is the question?
Dr. Jyoti, would you like to unmute yourself?
Please, yeah, Jyoti, please do that.
Sir, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Yeah. 99, I was your student in Lonavala camp.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, sir. Very impressed with your pediatric cases and other things. Yeah. I would like to know, when we treat children, and they come with some dreams and other things, when we give medicine and then follow-ups, how should we take it as? Now, all cases that doesn't say I don't get dreams, but some cases they come with other set of dreams. So how do I know the prognosis of that case?
Good question. What may even help, Jyoti, as if I would encourage you, is there any one such particular dream that you have in mind from your practice that you would like to very quickly share, that a child of yours may have shared with you? Do you remember anything offhand?
A lot of children come with fear of ghosts, fear of animals, and fear of having snakes and all. That is a big part of dreams in kids. But when they come back next time, they say different dreams. But these dreams, they say, I never got it after medicine. But other fears they may develop.
Yes.
So I'll be in confusion whether to give stramonium or something else.
Very, very good question. Very good question. Yeah. So I'm just trying to get my thoughts together. Jyoti, give me a second.
Yeah, sure, sir.
Yes. So yeah, ghosts, animals, snakes, darkness. You're right. These come up very, very predominantly. Monsters come up too. You would agree, right? Like some may say fierce looking monsters. So firstly, it is good to combine a dream, in my experience, with also what the child is doing in your clinic other than the sharing of that dream. Like, for example, in one girl that I remember many years ago, she was sharing dreams of snakes coming to bite her in bed. Okay, and many times most of the times they would succeed. Sometimes she would be able to escape, and sometimes they would actually bite her. Now, I was also encouraging her to draw, and there was a piece of paper, and she was doing things more than the drawing. She was trying to draw a monster, but the way she was drawing it, literally, she was with the pencil drawing and putting so much of pressure with the nib. I noticed, because many times I had to sharpen it again and give it back to her, and then I realized the entire page was being torn. So now it's not just the dream I'm seeing, or the nightmare, if you want to call it, but it's also the way the child was using material available in the clinic, which you guys should do, especially, even adults use them, and they should always keep it handy, and different sets of colors, etc., because the choice of colors that they use, how much pressure they put off the pencil, what is the chaos. Dreams can represent miasms. They can be very clear, well designed, systematic dreams, almost cancer miasm like, as against if I show you some of the doodles of the tubercular miasm kids, it is the scribble is so chaotic, and here it was very, very leprous like. Why do I say that? Because this child was, this is many years ago, but your question is triggering something in me to represent this case in an appropriate way. Young girl, she was about 7. She had an older brother who was 11. Now, in that, she'd tear that paper and she'd say, I'll take a new one. I said, sure, you're welcome to take a new one, but what happened to the old one? No, it's dirty. I don't like it. So the use of the word dirty, and the way she was scribbling it, almost as if she was slashing the paper. And very interestingly, when I noticed, she was drawing the family, and the slashing was happening more around the figure that represented her older brother. Now, on one hand, superficially, they seem to have a loving relationship.
I think you are muted.
I'm muted?
No, sir, we can hear you.
You can, no?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah. So, she kept saying that it's dirty. I don't like it. I want to draw a better one. So you could see that there was a lot of low self-esteem. This dreams of the snakes was there. Now the brother, when I see very carefully the 4-5 drawings that she had done, the one where the brother was supposed to be represented, he was put a little away from the rest of the family, and the maximum slashes were happening around where the brother was in the drawing. Now later, when there was a lot of jealousy, sibling rivalry. So to put things together, she had a lot of cystitis kind of issues, low immunity, enlarged adenoids, asthma, almost very arsenic kind of acute asthma kind of situation. Now later, when I spoke to the parents alone, and especially the mother shared some examples where she, like, it was a family thing, so she didn't want to openly admit it at first. But when I said, this is what I'm seeing, is there something that I'm missing here? Would you like to share something in all confidence? And she shared about moments where the girl would come and not in a complaining way, but in a confused way, come to the mother and said that my brother was showing me his private parts, and there was some fondling and touching going on. So there was an element of sexual abuse happening. And with this dream, coming to your question, Jyoti, it was snakes coming into her bed. Like, I mean, so the perpetrator is very much around one's private personal space, and being confused. I mean, like, I mean, what he's doing, is it permitted, is it allowed? It seems like some sensation that I'm not familiar with, but this was happening, and it was being pushed and buried. But thanks to that interview, not only did the girl get Sencris, as some of you must have figured by now, the copperhead snake, which, by the way, you should know that the asthma and respiratory symptoms of Sencris are very similar to arsenic in terms of modalities. It is even Borike mentions that when arsenic fails to help in asthma, think of Sencris. It is there in Borike's. You can confirm it. Yeah. So based on this, the dream, and along with the doodle and the leprous miasm, help me to prescribe Sencris for this girl. Now, your other question was, then what happens after the dreams change? Yes, the dreams change, and they should change for the better, because now the trauma, she's able to, because of this, she was able to, the family was able to understand what was happening to the child. And then there were certain safety measures taken to ensure that these things are not repeated. So then subsequently, the dreams also started to reflect in a more positive way, more caring, more nurturing, more happiness. There was respect and boundaries set. Now, when the girl would, not only were the dreams reflecting in a positive way, Jyoti, but also in her drawings, this kind of deep scribbling, the sense of shame was not there. The brother started to come closer. She was now feeling safe in his presence, so he was allowed to come a little closer. Rather than first he was appearing as a villainous person, which was being expressed through creative expressions like drawing. So that is where sometimes they are unable to talk about it openly, but through body language, through the use of art and paper, through the use of dreams and nightmares. And then gradually the family starts to be harmonious once again, and things fall into place. So I hope that has been able to, but you must keep in mind, so now you said stramonium. So yes, ghosts, animals, snakes, darkness, monsters. Right away, Solanaceae family, stramonium comes to mind for sure. Hyoscyamus, mandragora, these are all the nightshades. However, this is where the understanding of the sensations, along with the terror themes, which I have impressed in the book as well, that you could be dealing with a case of Mancinella. So there's a lot of fear, terror, fear of being possessed, fear that the devil will possess them. But along with these things, in the Euphorbiaceae family, plant family to which Mancinella belongs, there will also be elements of extreme dryness. So when you are familiar with the Euphorbiaceae family sensations, so you'll go to the prototype. The prototype in Euphorbiaceae is crotontic, right? So in crotontic, you will have hide-bound sensation. That's the hide-bound sensation, that things have got so dry and plastered. It's like if any of you have used face masks like beautification, and then when it dries up, that kind of dryness, like sandpaper, like when they start describing that kind of dryness with the terror, which is Solanaceae like, very often it could be a case of Mancinella, right? So this way we have to make sure, that's where the 10 Ws come in. If you target just that one part of fears and emotions, it may be an inaccurate simillimum. We want to get to the simillimum. So how do we study all the W's to ensure that all the areas are covered, and then you are prescribing with more accuracy, and both in acute as well as chronic cases, children as well as adults, and not just acute presentations, but even pathologies, which I will tell you about some cases with deep pathology where this method has proven useful. Okay, Jyoti, does that clarify your question to some extent?
Yeah, sir. Thank you. Looking forward for your book, sir. Thank you.
Oh, good. So now let's see, importance in graphology, intention, Jyoti. So yeah, that was a useful question, Jyoti. Anybody else before or do you want me to move on? I'm just giving you a few seconds.
So Dr. Ashok has raised his hand. Dr. Ashok, if you want, you can unmute.
This is Ashok. Doctor, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
If my voice is enough, because sometimes I have, because of the computer might be a little low.
Yes, I'm able to hear you clearly. Please go on.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I have two questions.
Yes.
As even the Dr. Jyoti have spoken about these fears and everything. And before that, you were talking about yoga and Ayurveda, the word you have added in that. My first question is how you will introduce and guide as a great professor that in case I needed to continue to add my homeopathic cure with Ayurveda, and especially the yoga and meditation. I appreciate this, our couple, Dr. Shah and Prajakta. They are very expert in also yoga and meditations, and they are doing the courses also. So me too, I'm too much interested always to help the patient that how we can help these people, especially these psychological people. As Dr. Jyoti was speaking for the fears, there are many patients who are psychologically very in difficulty of life, so that we need it, other than the right homeopathic medicines, that we might be helping them with some meditation systems, with the yoga systems, or any other product, even in sense of the theme of yoga, that we have it over. And should I complete the second question, or
absolutely? This is the first question, right? This is complete. Your first question.
Yes.
Okay. What is the second question?
Yeah, approach of yoga and Ayurveda along with our. Yes. And second question is, what is your experience as you are staying in Canada? You might have seen, or you might have knowledge about this thing, how we can approach in a very prudential, means very careful way to this homosexual people, our patients, especially the ladies, that we have to ask many questions to complete our case taking, but how we have to be very triangle of the traffic, that we have to be very careful to ask such approach that we will have all the informations where we can have the right answer to find the right remedy. Thank you very much.
This is Dr. Ashok, right?
This is Ashok here. Yeah.
Ashok. Okay. Thank you, Ashok. Yeah. So very interesting. So yeah, yoga, Ayurveda, and homeopathy, meditation, psychological. Yeah. So the term that I like to use, which you may find useful, Ashok, would be guided meditation. So it's not a new term, it's not my term, but the use of guided imageries based on whatever remedy is coming up after detailed case taking can be used as a very powerful tool along with remedy for quicker resolution of the case. Now, for example, if in the case, a part of the fear of that particular patient is water, ocean, and fear of drowning, correct? So along with the remedy, how we can use guided meditation to help them overcome this fear of drowning, where it is come from, how can we use techniques along with the remedy to help them overcome their childhood fears. This is one thing. Now, the Ayurveda is an amazing model, and I think every homeopath should be familiar with the concept of as per Ayurveda, because there's a lot of similarities. There are some differences, but there are a lot of similarities. In fact, in Pune, Dr. Oswal, Gunwant Oswal, you can Google it, it's called G therapy. So he uses a lot of Ayurvedic remedies, but potentized as per homeopathic principles. So this is very amazing what he does. It was something I was not aware of, but thanks to his daughter and his son-in-law, who were my students, I got to know him and we became friends. And you know what he's doing is amazing. And so we share our knowledges and cases with one another. So to understand the system, take a detailed case, what kind of advice to give them in terms of lifestyle, diet modifications based on weather changes. In winter different, in summer different, in the monsoon different, depending on what kind of medical conditions they have. Ayurveda has put this beautifully, much better than what the homeopaths have done. So I think when we use that model, it makes us more complete in the understanding of human anatomy and physiology. And also sometimes we can use some of these procedures based on the case along with the homeopathic remedies, Shirodhara, etc. Beautiful use of oil techniques in the right way, the right kind of oil, etc. And I have seen cases with depression, cancer, even autism, responding so much better if we combine the two modalities. Now, approach in Canada to homosexuality, and you said more the lesbian varieties. See, the word, and I'm glad you said, you know, is there a word of caution? Absolutely. See, in North America, it's all about freedom and liberty. And a lot of people who have moved there have primarily moved there because they feel it is their choice to practice the religion that they want to practice, or the sexual preferences that they have. And the moment you as a homeopath try to convey to them, not only is it against the law, and that's right, I would agree, but also you try to tell them this is a sickness. And you can show them in the repertory, there are certain rubrics on which we can give remedies to change and make you normal. This, I think, is very wrong. And we should be very guarded and careful about this. Okay, because if you are trying to convey to them that this is abnormal, so this is a very paternalistic way of telling them that we can make you normal. So this can get you into trouble with the law, with the health professional, with your insurance company, and of course with the patient. The patient can sue you for a statement like that. So, but at the same time, after having said that, you know, this word of caution initially, there are cases that sometimes there's a stage of confusion. You know, there's a dysmorphia that just starts off, they don't know, they're confused because they don't know which way to go. And at that point, if they can come to you and you can play some role in reassuring them and calming them down and helping them to choose which direction they want to go with more clarity rather than confusion, then our homeopathic remedies can play a huge role in helping them decide for themselves what is their personal preference and liking. So it is huge there. It is not just about homosexuality and lesbian alone now. Now it's the LGBTQ, and there are so many other plus varieties that have been added And governments have been toppled, whether in Canada or in the US, if they have dared to be derogatory in their statements about these group of people. So you may have your personal opinions, but you should keep it to yourself. But as far as the aphorism goes in homeopathy, when the patient comes to you, you have to be absolutely unprejudiced observer, and you have to just assist them and aid them for the issue, the specific issue or issues that they have come to you for, and not indoctrinate them in trying to make them believe that what they are doing is wrong or harmful or immoral. I hope that answers to some extent.
Thank you very much. Really, that was just a very careful situations that we have to treat such patient. What for they came? They didn't come for their problems, the actual homosexual problem, but they came for other reasons. As you told, that we have to be very concerned in our frame to not to go as their parents. We have to be a practitioner in sense to cure them for what they have asked for, that not to go with that situation. Thank you very much. Really, it was very nice guiding to understand the situation and to, in a very careful situations, to ask any of the certain questions. That was the theme for me. Thank you very much, doctor. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Ashok. I see a certain question here. So with your permission, Twinta and the others, I'm just going to read it out here. So request if you could please show some doodles and the corresponding emotional state conveyed. Okay. Now I don't have doodles here on me to show, but I can talk about them, right? So firstly, it's a great question. Okay. What I would like to firstly impress is the doodle is not necessarily paper, pencil, pen alone. That of course is a doodle, but you have to extend that idea to something which is very characteristic to that particular patient. Let me give you a recent example. Now, this is not about a doodle, but it will try to impress what I'm trying to highlight here, right? So a very close family friend's dad, I happened to be here fortunately, and the dad was admitted with very acute stomach pain. No fecal, no bowel passage. Vomit is sometimes with a little fecal matter or dark melena kind of thing. So obviously this was alarming. The patient was admitted in a lot of distress. Now, I happened to be here, so the patient was under the guidance of a senior homeopath whom I had heard of, and so when the name came to me, I immediately said, well, he seems to be in good care, but for this particular situation, have you consulted him? They said no, because the situation is so precarious. Maybe we should do it later. What do you feel? Do you feel homeopathy has a role at this point? I said, let's be clear over the next 48 hours, because I happen to be here. I'm going to be here for a few days. And it was finally a case of paralytic ileus. Okay. Now, this is an emergency condition. They were trying to see whether is there a need for surgery. All this was going on. And at that point, they asked me, does homeopathy have a role to play? So I connected, of course, with the homeopath. This is something I'm saying intentionally because in the past, there have been not too good experiences. The moment you try to share or you try to find out what prescriptions have been given to a patient wants to come to you, but the homeopaths become very territorial and possessive. It's not healthy for medicine, not just homeopathy, for medicine. A second opinion, a third opinion, a fourth opinion, when required in a case, we should empty out everything without thinking that the case may go out of our hands. And this is a lesson. The earlier you learn, the happier it will leave you, the more credibility you will get within the community, and of course, the patient will benefit. So I never thought for a moment that I should take up that case, but I should reach out to that homeopath I learned this many years ago from a situation where a small child was coming to me for extensive eczema, and the father was a very well-known music director. So I'm not going to name him because he's well-known. But the girl was small and she was already into drumming and drums and rhythm. And so for me, I was very junior then, clear case of tarantula. But the father's expectations was that within a week, the eczema should clear up. And unlike how I am now able to absorb such aggressive energy, I was not able to do that appropriately then. So rather than having to deal with the child, I got into a conflict and a dialogue with the father. And unfortunately, of course, as it should have happened, it didn't end well. And they stopped coming to me. And I was saddened because I was hopeful that tarantula is what I had prescribed for the girl, because I was beginning to see some changes, but the father was not in a state of mind to be receptive to what the remedy was doing. Anyway, within 4 days of not hearing, because they had an appointment, they didn't keep it, I get a call from Dr. Dhavle's clinic. Now, I don't know him, but I don't know him personally, but of course I know him as a teacher and a very respected teacher. And I pick up the phone thinking it'll be the secretary or an assistant. He's on the phone himself. So I said, yes, sir, what can I do for you? He said, no, there's a patient and they have come to me, and I heard that they were your patient, and I felt that it would be useful if I would get to know what remedies or remedy that you had prescribed. And so I wasn't ready, but I immediately, because it was recent, right? I shared all the material and I said, this is, I thought it was a case of tarantula, but unfortunately, it didn't end very well. Father's little aggressive kind. So he said, Sunil, that's a brilliant prescription. And I think I'm going to stay with the same, but I will keep you posted on the development. So this was a very early positive experience for me, where unlike where I've seen with other homeopathic professionals, it doesn't end that way. But I have always encouraged that in my practice. And I have always gained from that. I have a lot of respect, a lot of goodwill. And that's important in the medical, in any profession, but more so in the medical community. So coming back to this case of paralytic ileus, I picked up the phone and I wasn't surprised because the homeopath, I'm not going to take names, introduced himself and he talked with a lot of respect. He told me what remedies he had given. And I said, well, we need to align this case and I don't mind just being in touch and let's try to treat this patient together, and they seem very comfortable with you and I would like you to treat. But these are the things I've observed. Now, coming to your question of doodles, I had been reading, he's a poet, right? So I've been reading books about him, and recently his daughter had given me one of his latest books on poetry. So I was reading them and I was always admired what he wrote because I like music and poetry. But the main theme of all that, even before he developed the paralytic ileus, was delusion, superhuman control. So constantly talking about God, religion, and how you cannot go against the will of the divine power, and all of us are under this superhuman control. Now, when you say like that, and in the poetry, one after the other, it becomes like a pattern. A doodle is also like a pattern. It's not just out of the blue. You will see the same consistent doodle coming up in some form or the other, repeatedly. So when you observe something like this, it becomes like a right side brain probe observation, subjective signs and symptoms, in which doodle is a part of it, and the paralytic ileus and constipation with such pain. And there were other things that I had observed because I've known him for a few years, but I never treated him, right? But just because of that book of poetry, I could talk to this homeopath and say, listen, you should consider opium. Maybe Nux vomica first to try to because there's a lot of drugs that have gone in, and then opium. And he said, yes, sir, I think it's a brilliant suggestion, and I will definitely consider it, and I will move accordingly, and I'll keep you posted on the development. So it is, when we say in the W's, who is the patient? That is the most important W. If you spend enough time trying to understand who is the patient, why did he choose a certain career, what does it mean to him, what are his interests and hobbies, in that a lot of information will be offered, which then will only, we don't prescribe just on poetry, right? So I'm not trying to belittle what we do as detailed 2-3 hours of case taking. All that is required, but it is little leads like this, what I like to call entry points, which lead to anchors later. But first you have to get the entry point, and that can be different depending on whom you are dealing with. And then you confirm the rest of the history subsequently. As and when other doodles will come to my mind, I will of course share in the book itself. If you have the copy of the book, or hopefully you will get it, there are lots of doodles, but one particular one I remember in particular was this child who had very severe gastritis, and this was post anticox treatment, because she'd had osteomyelitis, right? So that had totally corroded her stomach. She was also getting asthma. And while trying to describe her stomachache and her migraines to me, she did drawings. So let me see if maybe I can just do it right now, what she had done, just to give you a little glimpse. So there were 2 doodles, or let me just show it to you from the book. 1 minute. So yes, it is in chapter 4C. Page 101. Case of stomachache with reflux. Now, this won't be very clear, I know, but I'm still trying to put it here. See, there are these 2 drawings that she has done. Okay, there's this one where she's describing her migraines. It's like pins going in, sharp pins and needles. And here she's describing her stomachache, and she's drawn this, and I said, what is this? And she says, these are teeth, and these teeth are as if eating my insides. So that's how she has drawn her stomachache. So thanks to these doodles, the whole concept of trap, of the carnivorous plants came up, the victim feeling, the feeling that I'm being persecuted and people are trying to drag me down and show me in bad light, the whole tuberculous element, the tubercular miasm themes, the need to be free but having to be restricted, was what helped me to prescribe Drosera for this girl. So it's a whole detailed case which is mentioned in the book. But it was these doodles that she did, and when she kept doing them, actually, if you look at this one, it's almost like the sundew plant itself as she is doing it, right? So these are very useful. It's a dimension which we don't use enough. So I hope after this talk, maybe some of you are already using it, and that's great. But if you're not, try to use this to your advantage in practice, and you will be amazed at what kind of insights it will provide. So this is one doodle I can definitely think of. As more and more will come to my mind, I will share with you. I hope that answers your question to some extent. Is that Shairoz, Master?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Is there any
example?
Yeah. Shairoz, right?
Yes, Shairoz.
Shairoz, anything more? Is it answered to your satisfaction? You have any other question based on this? Then I will come to the next
No,
question. Let me just make sure that you are satisfied with my answer.
yeah, I'm done. Yeah, I've got the point. Yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome. So, Haresh Makani asks, can Ayurveda and homeopathic treatment be used together in lifestyle diseases like diabetes and hypertension, thyroid, obesity, etc.? Can they be used together? Absolutely. I have so many of my, especially deep pathology, right? They are already traumatized. It's a cancer. It is a type 1 diabetes. And they say, listen, we are taking some Ayurveda. And is it okay? So but the only thing, so my answer is yes, absolutely. For all these things, hypertension, diabetes, thyroid, obesity, we're mainly looking at, so there's cardiovascular, but you can see the endocrine dysfunction, right? And we know as homeopaths, which George Vithulkas emphasized on, and I always keep that in my mind, the PNEI axis. So that's what's disturbed, sometimes one or two, sometimes all four. So depending on how much is involved, you know how tough the outcome of the case is going to be, the prognosis. So P is for psychological, N is for neurological, E is endocrine, and I is immune system. But after having said that, if there is a possibility, which is not always practical, for me to connect with the Ayurveda, not only you get to learn more, but also they are on the same page and they also know, and we provide insights and share information with one another, then I think not only is the patient reassured, but it also is beneficial for the patient because now both are acting as a team. So this teamwork or this collaboration is really the secret to integrative modalities like this, right? I hope that answers your question. I see another question. Can I read? What should we convey to the patient when we ask for a doodle? So firstly, the timing. So what I do is, you can go to my website and there's a form which is free. You can download and you can see that in the end, there is something called a creative page. Now, some discouraged me to put it there because they said, that's not really a doodle. Now, I know it's not a doodle, but it's basically introducing the concept of the doodle while they are filling out the case form. Correct? So they are already into that, and some children get very excited. Oh, they are curious. First it would say, oh, we are going to the doctor. Oh no, what is he going to inject me? And long lines, and they don't know what they are expecting. Now, the moment they have to draw something for the doctor, already the equation changes. The ball game changes. They say, who is this funny guy? He wants us to actually draw something, and he's saying even get more of the drawing books, etc. So they're eager, they are curious. These are the pediatric patients. Even adults do some amazing doodles. So they have got into the concept of this new dimension of what to expect when they come to the clinic. So it's like a preparation, right? So now, what do we convey? We don't have to convey anything. It's not that I ask for doodles in each and every case. I only ask for a doodle if I feel stuck in a case, or the child himself is eager and wants to say, I want to do something. See, so I'll say, sure, there's lots of paper and pencil, and please feel free to do it. Or it even gives me some, so they are there, I'm observing how they are doing and what they are doing. And yet I'm talking to the parents. So I'm having my own private time with the parents, and parents are wanting to tell me medical information and things like that. And there's a children corner where they are sitting there doing their thing. From a distance, they are showing me. Often the case is video recorded if they have given consent. So I'm seeing from a distance. They don't have to come close, but sometimes they won't. If it's a phosphorus child, just showing from the distance is not enough. He wants to come. He or she will want to come and say, listen, this is what I've done. Is it good? How do you want me to do it? You want me to put my name? Can I have another piece of paper? And things like that. So it's not just about what they do in the doodle, but what's the interaction you have with the doodle. So we don't have to convey. We just say, But sometimes, for example, when you ask this question about what should we convey, you can, I remember one case which is over here. It's the case of, one second. Yeah, it's the case of heart devils. Chapter 4E 145. So this is interesting. Yeah, you'd like to see this doodle. This was a very interesting case. Now here, you see, when I give her the creative page, before the interview starts, she's done hearts and butterflies. And, normally what a girl, she was probably, when she came to me, 11, I think. Now, the moment the interview starts and she starts talking about her eczema, which is terrible, and, it's giving her a hard time. So she tells me that I usually do hearts. Okay. So I said, okay, please do it. So she does the heart. So you have to now visualize, right? That it started just with the heart. Okay. Something like this, just the heart. But now as her itching gets more, she says, I start to draw the sign of the devil from the heart. And then as the itching gets more, I can break the pencil because the itching is getting so more. I will sharpen it again, and then the devil gets a tail. But if I'm even more angry and the itching is just not bad, then I draw a devil, which is, look at the eyebrows. It's more angry. It's become a two-tailed devil. And so see, just from the innocent heart, it's an angry devil, which is frowning and angry, and it has two tails. And this was a case of Crotalus cascavella. So the details of it, of course, is in the book. And the girl did amazing. And the mother is horrified, confused. No, this is not my daughter. This, because there's a lot of violence coming up. And I said, no, relax, calm down, and just let her be herself. And she doesn't get angry. And the child looks at the mother during the interview and says, Mom, I can get angry. So the mother is, so I just encourage the mother to sit back. But I want the mother to observe the dynamics of what is happening in the interview. And it's so much of an learning for the mother also, aspects of, and they were very close, they're good chemistry, but yet in the interview, so many things get revealed, and it leaves the parents astonished. And then, of course, the kind of friendship that you develop. This girl now is a yoga practitioner in New York somewhere. This case was seen in India, but she's in touch. Whenever she feels there is a need to reach out, or she has a medical issue, she's not on treatment any longer, I am the first person she will reach out to and consult. But I haven't heard from her since a while. And I encourage that, right? So you just have to, so what I was conveying in that particular case was that as the itching gets more, what would you do on paper? And this is what she did. So we don't have to impress them or direct them, as is mentioned in case taking techniques. No leading questions, but you can just encourage that as you are feeling. If you can't describe the sensation to me, which is important to me, but if you can't describe, can you do it on paper while you experience it at its peak? And something positive or deep may be represented on paper at times. It may not happen every time. And it's not what you interpret, it is what they look at it and what they say about it while looking at it, that is more important. I hope that makes this your question a little clear.
Yes, sir. It was a
okay.
perfect explanation.
Okay. What else? So, is there any other question, or should I continue?
No more questions, sir.
Okay.
You can continue.
So I can continue. let's talk about another case. This is not in the book. In the book, there is a mention of this remedy, but this is not from the book. It's a case seen much later, much after the book came out. It's an adult case because, you may get the impression that this may be useful only for pediatric age group, not necessarily. Non-verbal kids, of course, it is very, very useful, but even for adults, it is applicable. Okay. So this person who stays in California was referred to me for very seasonal, high level of seasonal allergies. So you may think that allergies can't get that severe, but trust me, if here in North America, if you are allergic, and unfortunately, a lot of plants have been put which are not local indigenous plants. So that has caused a lot of hybrid things which people there are not familiar with, and then they react very adversely to them. So he had come basically for his seasonal allergies. Now, as per the 10W analysis, I wanted to understand who the patient is. So he's got a software engineering background. He had a startup company, and he invested a lot of time and money in it. But unfortunately, in the Silicon Valley, this is a big thing. Many startup companies start, but not all are successful. So he'd had some success earlier, but with this particular startup, it was a disaster. He learned a lot from it, but he lost a lot of money and became almost bankrupt. And with that, sleep issues started, erectile dysfunction started. And then I asked him about his childhood. So childhood is another area where, which is emphasized in homeopathic case taking, but in the 10Ws itself, that what is the childhood state of an adult patient? Like, how was he as a child? And as some of you are familiar with, that is emphasized on because as adults, we tend to compensate. It's called a coping mechanism in psychology, right? In psychiatry. But as a child, there is not much coping mechanism. There could be some, but not much. So the chances are you will get to see a glimpse, an unfiltered glimpse of that patient reflected as how he was as a child, right? So this is a useful tip to inquire and spend enough time into. And he talked, I could see there was sadness and almost some tears. His eyes got a little moist because what he was going to tell me was he was very young and his father died of a sudden heart attack. And this was a very difficult time for the family because then it was just the mother, single parent. She did how much she could, but so there were financial issues. And just that, coming and seeing his father dying in front of him. Now, these are the shock remedies. Now, normally you will associate aconite, right? Gelsemium, Ignatia. These are the common shock remedies. There could be some more, but these are the main 3 or 4. But in this case, the emphasis of how he was coping with this shock and trauma was he had anesthetized himself. He had become numb. He felt it is safer to be numb to deal with the adversities of life. Now, this numbness comes up when, not just as a child, but even like when there'd be bullying and people would laugh at the kind of clothes he was wearing, because often these were pass me down because they could not afford. And he had to be subjected to ridicule, but there was no choice, you see. So once he told his mother that I don't want to go to this school, or maybe you can change my school. And she said, listen, I'm not in a position to do that. Please try to understand and try to cooperate. And he said, I hated going, but I knew there was no option. So I just had to go subject myself to this ridicule. And but it just made me numb. I couldn't feel my emotions. So same way, when there was this financial loss, he became very numb. His ability to emote. He had a lovely family, wife, kids, but a sort of disconnect took place. He started to be in solitude. There was a little query depression. When I asked about his interest and hobbies, it was trekking, and not just regular trekking, but dangerous trekking, going up high altitudes. And he said, what's interesting is that I'm not comfortable with heights, but somehow I feel I had to conquer this. So I've gone to some and I'm training for even later for Summit 1 of the Himalayas. So he was gearing himself for that. So very fit person otherwise. But even when this collapse happened financially with his startup, it was again numb. People thought he will be devastated. And he said, no, I didn't feel anything. Now that is coming up in the erectile dysfunction where, he feels, I just don't feel, there's no sensation. He's even tried Viagra and things like that, but it's helped a little bit, but now this is where you're understanding, getting the overview of the case, thanks to all the W's that we have explored, which is highlighted in the books. What are the criteria for choosing these W's? And then he says that I have to take a certain medicine because I suffer from high altitude sickness. Now, the moment the patient says high altitude sickness, the ones who are familiar and have used this remedy know this is a case of coca, right? So coca is a great remedy for, we don't normally associate it as a shock remedy, but when there is numbness, post-trauma, coca becomes a very important remedy. So he was going into, trying to do daring feats. He wanted, it's almost as if he's dead, like cannabis. These drug remedies have many elements, many themes. So that's why I spent a separate chapter on drug remedies. Towards the end, I felt it should be included in the book. So certain drug remedies are mentioned there. So is a child case of coca, very interesting case I saw years ago. So in the family geranials to which coca belongs, there is this whole theme of going into autopilot mode. Okay, if you see the drug proving in Clark's, also the mention is the people who are chewing the coca leaves are just masticating the leaves mechanically, and they've gone into a kind of a trance. Okay, so this is one of the derivatives from which cocaine is prepared, as you know. So it's not freely available here in North America. So there, you have to get it from certain sources. So to be able to make him see how performance anxiety in the corporate world was linked with his performance in bed, that's also a kind of a performance, and why that was numb, because he numbed himself because of the traumas and tragedies, and to share this understanding with him and his remedy. This is something here, but as per law in Canada, it's different here in India. But even while I was here in India, I often felt if the patient was receptive and wanted to understand why a remedy was being selected, I never had, with the rare exception of one or two who may have misused the prescription, but the majority would respect the fact that it should be taken only under medical guidance. So this is something I always encourage, that it helps me to impress on the patient the clarity with which I have studied his case, shared the analysis of the case, and also what the 10 W's model is about, and that it's not just alone for homeopathic remedy prescribing, but it's a way of life. When you choose an employee, when you choose what your lifestyle is going to be, if you study it and you approach it with the understanding of the 10 W's, the chances are not only will you be successful and satisfied, but it will leave you more whole as an individual. So I try to impress that on them. And several of the patients, for more understanding, they ask me, what books can we take your book? I say, well, I recommend one or two other books also, which are more basic, because this is a bit technical, but yet once they have gone through those base books, then I encourage them to get this if they like, and it helps them. They come back with some great questions, and it gives me ideas as to, what else I would like to explore and expand based on what's come up in this book, and maybe in future work on some more books on those particular subjects. So this man did very well on coca, and this was a very satisfying experience. Now, let me just see. Is there? Yes, sir. Please suggest a few books. Yeah, sure. So books, yeah. Let me see. So first, of course, as far as homeopathy is concerned, the two that stand out for me, for patients. Okay, there are great homeopathic books, but I think the Science of Homeopathy by George Vithulkas, and to take them to a new dimension of the Soul of Remedies or the Spirit of Homeopathy by Rajan Shankaran, these form a base which then, they are able to understand the intricacies of my book with a little bit more clarity. And then if they want more books, of course, I will recommend it to them, even Jan Scholten or Catherine Coulter. Some of them do get impressed by that. But as I told you, I look at models even outside of homeopathy, right? So Bruce Lipton, in understanding the dynamics of biogenetics, is a book that I've been very impressed by. The Tao of Homeopathy by Ian Watson is a small little booklet, but I find it, whenever I read it, I've read it a couple of times, I will always find, because for me, the Chinese art, the Japanese art, the calligraphy, the Egyptian art in that book, the way the calligraphy designs have been made and each subject has been answered in a nutshell, I think it's very wise. I look at books like Sun Tzu and the Art of War, because for me, many times if you know, even in the corporate world, they call the boardroom the war room. So you're going there, and so this whole energy of people standing there and just sharing things of how they can execute a plan and devise strategies. I think as homeopaths also, there has to be a strategy in place. What to expect? What are preemptive moves? What's your plan A? What's your plan B? What's your plan C? Are these remedies available? If not, how do you arrange for them? I think this is a very important part. So Sun Tzu talks about techniques like this. And with my interest in martial art, which again, there is a mention of that in the book, I find this book very useful in understanding and respecting your adversaries and opponents, if you want to call it in that, right? But there's no opponents really, but not in the field of medicine when you're dealing with a client, but the approach is somewhat similar. Of course, I've read, there's David Little's compendium of 10 volumes, and these are more detailed works of organon, and they're amazing, but there's a lot of history in that. So, but like most of you chronic diseases, the organon, of course, especially the original by Hahnemann, but also Webster, O'Reilly, Manish Bhatia. Now, I've not read it, but what I read in Homeopathy, I'm impressed by. So I'm sure he's someone who has put things together in a delightful way. Dr. Dhavle's book, on the ICR model of case taking, amazing. I don't know how I forgot that. That should have come a little higher up. Fartak's, of course, is always with me. Bonninghausen, I refer to, but more it's the concept of the 10 W's that impresses me more than actually his repertory. Okay, I would prefer to refer more to the complete repertory, Millennium, because there's just about 200 remedies, unfortunately, that were shared in Bonninghausen's time, and no one really put in the effort. Maybe some of you if you're inclined to, will follow that model and put in more remedies there. But these are the books that for now stand out for me. What else? How are we doing with time? We have some time. Yeah. So we are going. So let me see. Is there anything else? Okay. Yeah. Deepa, that's good. Yeah. Okay. Now let's see. You see, then be alert to, as I said, try to learn from things around you. Okay. Be ready to relearn, unlearn, and learn from various, not just homeopathy related alone, even from outside. For example, in today's newspaper, Times of India, some of you may have read it. There was a mention of the Heisenberg principle in today's Times of India. It's an amazing article on the speaking tree by one, I don't know, it's some Krishna Sinha, someone, I think. So, you know, if you have access to the Times of India, and even those of you who are outside of the country, just Google it up. Times of India, Krishna Sinha, speaking tree, Heisenberg principle. Now, I'll come to it in a while, but I see a question, so I'm just going to just read. If possible, please put the names of the best few books in the chat box. Sangeeta, okay. Please put the names of the best few books in the chat box. So maybe I can, I think with this way, what will be better is I've named some books, but I will put together a list and I'll reach it to Twinta. And she has all of you in her list and she can reach them to you so that way I make sure that I don't miss out on some important ones, but I'd surely do that. I'm making a note of it right now. So list of books. I'd be happy to do that.
Yes, sir, I can do that.
Yes, yes. In North America, especially, I mean, the libraries are amazing, amazing. I mean, it's just a big way to learn and to catch up with range of topics and subjects, and not just books. You can get them in different forms. So I'm very lucky and fortunate to be able to master certain things which I felt I would never have access to, but now I have them, and I'm very, very grateful for that. Any guidance on provings? Could you explain the 10 W? Okay, one second. The questions are coming in. So let's see. The Heisenberg principle can wait, but let me just see what's good. So I'm just reading all the questions. Okay, then maybe sometimes two questions are interlinked. Any words about provings and reprovings? Okay. Can you explain the 10 Ws, Vibhutis? Sangeeta Char, yeah, okay. So let's, any words about provings and reprovings? Yeah. So I did a couple here, classical Hahnemannian. So I'm thinking of, we did benzene, petroleum, Rattus, Culex, mosquito. Some I did with some others like strontium carb and lac humanum, lac leoninum, but amazing experience. I mean, but yeah, it came at a cost, especially the benzene petroleum. The toxicity was so high that for 10 years, now I think I'm over it. For 10 years, two things I remember is the knocking at the door, where I knew that this is a proving symptom, but I would actually go and open the door and there was no one there. So, and spellings, not that my spellings are great, but I was going to New Zealand for a seminar. I just couldn't spell New Zealand. Now it's not spelling, but even then I knew the spelling. It's not able to spell it right. So again, that was very useful when I'm using cases for autism and I see there's this big confusion. And I'm not just autism, of course, poor kids wouldn't even be able to write, but I'm talking of where there's higher intelligence. So there I would see mistakes and reversals in cases of dyslexia and learning disabilities. So what I've done over the last few years is there's only a certain amount of provings one can do. You've seen what has happened to herrings after lachesis. So there's a word of caution. There has to be a master prover. There has to be a range of other assistants. You should know what is the antidote of the remedy. It should, of course, be double blind. But of late, I'm finding it safer. Also, with advancing age and experience, I do what is called a C4 trituration, which originated from Germany. And I collaborate with a dear friend and colleague, Roland Gunther. So even when we are doing this mammal thing in Vancouver in November, there will be one mammal substance. We will not declare what it is. So it will be a live experience. So it's not a classical Hahnemannian proving. However, the trituration itself, while that is happening, liberates energy. And we do up to C4. As the name suggests, C1, C2, C3, C4, all this is recorded. Reprovings. So we do a lot of reprovings of that, but through the C4 or Shamia, what he likes to call it, method. But without a single experience of participating, you need not have to do it yourself. If you can do it yourself, it's great. If you can't, to even participate in at least one is an out of the world experience. It only entrenches your faith in homeopathy. So if you are considering do that, please do so. Your homeopath, if you're under treatment of someone, it's good to inform him or her so they know and they are in agreement that you are in a right state of mind to participate in the proving. This is useful. Now, could you explain the 10 Ws? I think that book would do it better, Vibhuti, but basically we are looking at the 7 Ws, which are, so if I had to spell that out, it'll be, so right in the beginning in the book, I built up the element of subjective and objective homeopathy and subjective signs and symptoms. And then finally, after lactating mothers and infants, the otitis media case is where I introduced the concept of the 10 Ws, which is in page number 169, and where it can be useful in both acute and chronic. And the introduction to 10 Ws through a non-verbal case starts in chapter 3b, page 36. This is a very beautiful, interesting case of impetigo, where the child needed lac defloratum, but based on the mother's state, but how the Ws were explored step by step. So, why has the patient developed the problem? Who is the patient? Where is the problem? With what? So the concomitants become and modalities, as you know, were big emphasis on Bonninghausen gave. And then, of course, I've added some, right? Like watch out. Like what have you observed? What kingdom and sub-kingdom? What is the progression? So what kind of miasm are we looking at? If the pace is so hectic and you're going to be prescribing Calcarea carb, the chances are you may fail because the pace is so fast, it doesn't match the slowness of Calcarea carb. So basically, that's the 10 Ws model, which if you read in the book, there'll be further clarity. But if you don't intend to purchase one, which is absolutely fine, just take my email address from Twitter and write to me, and I'll be happy to elaborate in more details. Yeah. Okay. Then kindly confirm the name of the book. Yeah. So the name of the book is Accuracy of 10 Ws in Homeopathic Case Taking, an extension to the 7 Ws of Bonninghausen. It's by B. Jain. So the first one came up in North America, and it's a decent one, but I think B. Jain has done a better job, and they're marketing it better, and also they understand the homeopathic terminology. So I'm very grateful for that. I think they've done a great job. So that's the name of the book. What else? Accuracy or 10, yeah, that's it. Yeah. How to obtain the book in Canada. Bridget, how to obtain the book in Canada. So Twinta, if you can just keep Bridget's question in mind, and then later through WhatsApp, I can send you the BGen people, or if you have links to them directly, they ship, because Bridget can get it locally from Canada. It's available in which part of Canada? Are you based in Canada, Bridget? Which part of Canada are you in? Ontario? Oh, Ontario, you will get it from Riverdale Homeopathy. So if you just go to Riverdale and say, I want a book of Sunil Anand, they would have a few copies, I think. That would be the best, easiest for you, I think, and also the most cost effective. So Riverdale Homeopathy, if you need the email address, etc., just send me a message either through Twinta or just separately on my email address. Let me write that down for you. So, oops, what did I do? Oh, God. I seem to have logged off. Let me see.
So you're still logged in.
I am logged in. So, but
yeah,
where
yeah.
am I? I'm logged in. Okay.
Yeah,
So
maybe you have minimized the screen, so you cannot
minimize
see.
the screen.
Yeah.
Oh, there I am. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So, how do I? I'm just.
So I can put it up in the chat box.
You
your
put it
email
in. Yeah,
address.
you put
I'll
it
do
in.
that.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, what else? So, so this article, Heisenberg, should we talk about that a little? We have some time.
Yes, sir, we have.
So in this article, very interesting, I saw it's about trade-offs in life seen in 5 different perspectives. Now it's related to what we are trying to impress and what I'm trying to talk about, where the writer says the Heisenberg's principle, Heisenberg is a Nobel laureate 1927, and he introduced the concept of the Heisenberg principle, where he predominantly, in a nutshell, says we cannot know both the position and the speed of a particle with perfect accuracy. Now, why is this important? Because the patient that comes to you could have a science background, he could be a physicist, he could be a scientist, or he could be an economist, or he could be a medical doctor, or he could be dealing in philosophy and psychology, or he could be an artist, right? So, very interestingly, he says that if a patient is coming to you for any pathology, he will always talk in the language in which he is most familiar with. Correct? So, but for that, you need to be familiar with that language as well, no? So this, a person who's talking about his pathology will actually say things like, you know, my pathology, it's difficult for me to say with perfect accuracy what is my position dealing with my illness and with what speed I am going to be cured or get worse. If the person has an economist background with economics, he will again talk in terms of economics. And that, you know, I would like to see someone in India to treat me as a homeopath, but it's just not cost effective. Because the time zones are different. I'd rather see someone local and have in-person interaction. So again, the economics will come up in this person. If it's a person with health background, that person again is going to say in terms of, I want to do well, I want to be successful, but I want a proper family life balance as well. So, but the moment I open 3 or 4 clinics, I don't have time for my family, and my time for my family is as important. I want the right balance. He's basically talking about the Heisenberg principle with the kind of language that he is familiar with. If it's a psychologist or someone who's very much delving into philosophy, he will say that I have to accept the fact that in life, there can never be a state of balance and harmony. So, because of that, I don't know that my disease is coming in the way of the balance that I would like in my life. Understand? Now, lastly, if the person is an artist and into poetry, the writer, this has very interestingly mentioned a poetry from a very famous Urdu lyricist, Nida Fazli. Those of you follow poetry, especially Urdu, will know Nida Fazli is very well known. So this is a very common, very famous ghazal. I will just sing a line or two of that and you'll get the gist of it. कभी किसी को मुकम्मल जहां नहीं मिलता, कहीं ज़मीं तो कहीं आसमां नहीं मिलता. Now, this is very endearing what he's trying to convey. It's the same Heisenberg principle. You know, if you translate this for some of us who are not familiar with Hindi and Urdu, no one ever gets the entire universe. Somewhere the earth and somewhere the sky is missing. Beautiful, right? So for me, these connections and knowing from where the patient is coming, what kind of language would he or she be comfortable with, for me to give them the confidence or the space or the insulation or the scaffolding, which is also mentioned in psychiatry, to help create a safe space for them to talk comfortably, to come up, because you're talking to a stranger, you met this person for the first time. How can you encourage him or her to feel safe in those 2 hours of that encounter to share their life? It's almost, I mean, you should feel privileged and attentive enough and not be concerned about anything else. You may be going through a lot of turmoil in your own personal life at that moment, but that is therapy for you as well. It's not just the patient that is benefiting. Very often, if you listen to that story in its depth and the trauma, or the good things that have happened to that particular person, it leaves the practitioner, which is us, also in a much better space. If you can take your case taking to that level, and the 10 W's emphasized, makes it easier for you to encourage the patient to talk about that space, that dimension. I think you will see that your practice will go to a very deep, satisfying level, right? So there's a few more things we could have covered, but I think we've sort of done an overview, and but we still have some time, so please feel free. Yeah, you got my email address and my date of birth, which is good, so that's why I like to use that. Now I'm seeing what else. It wasn't on their shop. I'll call. Yeah, I think it's there now. So yeah, I've ordered them from them before. Thanks. No, okay, great. And if you don't, now you have my email address. We can, if they don't have it or they're out of stock, then we can of course ship it to you from India, and BJN can send it to you. No problem. Yeah. What else? Anything more? Any other questions? You want to call it a day? It's really up to you.
Thank you, sir. If we have any more questions, I think participants can unmute themselves so that we save time.
I think these are some great questions, and thank you for that. I think we were able to cover quite a bit of in-depth topics. So yeah, thanks for your questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so Dr. Chanda is saying, nice to hear you singing. Heard you last in CMP. You are a great singer as well.
Yeah. That's my therapy, my go-to place for refuge and also for rejuvenation. Yeah. And we know the music therapy and also the movement therapy, the dance therapy, there are studios that how stiff we are. We've not been, most of us are not natural dancers or singers. So there are galleries and workshops and beautiful academies that encourage you to have proper rhythm. Connect with me on LinkedIn and you will see I've put in some articles where I talk about vibrational rhythms and percussions and conocles and things like that, which is all part of also learning to be in harmony with oneself and with nature.
Thank you so much, sir. I think we are getting a lot of compliments for you right now, more than the questions. I think you've covered all the questions so far.
Yeah. Sure. It was lovely interacting with all of you. Thank you, Twinta, and the others for organizing this. I'm very privileged. And hopefully we'll do another one somewhere down the line.
Yes, sir, sure. We would really love for you to come again on Musings, and it was really amazing to have you, sir. And yeah, you cleared everything in a very patient manner. You kept it very candid and impromptu. So thank you so much, sir, for your efforts and for imparting your knowledge in the simplest way that we can understand. And yeah, we definitely look forward to having you back again with some other topic. Thank you so much, sir, for coming, and thank you to all participants who have joined us. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you so much, sir. Bye. Bye. Take care.
Take care. Bye. Thank you.